Hello and welcome back to another episode of the It's Not Orange podcast. The Bloomfield Road hangover continues as Blackpool fall to the first defeat of the season on opening day against Alex Ravel's Stevenage in a 3-2 loss. It was a frustrating game and Blackpool showed signs of some decent football, but overall got bullied out of 3 points. And the travelling team celebrate a fifth opening day win in a row. But we're going to look everything that game, and of course looking forward to Exeter as well with a guest very soon. But joining me is my co-host Martin. How are you, mate?
I'm good. I was angry for 24 hours, but now I've gone back to being optimistic and philosophical because it's the only thing you can do as a Blackpool fan, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Being back to Bloomfield Road with competitive football was nice. Superb atmosphere before the game, and alas, the game wasn't what we wanted it to be. Well, certainly wasn't after their equaliser, of course, but the noise was great. The feel good factor before the game was there, and yeah.
Well, the stadium looked great. I mean, I walked in and it kind of like almost it took me by surprise just how great the East looks, considering what they've done in a short space of time. I thought the ground looked great. Pitch is an absolute carpet again. Just unbelievable. Everything was great, and then we kicked off. Well, we scored, then it went downhill. But yeah, it was just nice to be back and I still feel very optimistic about the season. I think everything is geared up for us to be successful, and we'll obviously look back at the game. But I'm hoping it's just a blip, and we'll be okay.
Yeah, I think we'll talk about Stevenage more than maybe us as well. We've got to take into consideration the opposition, and we may not like it, but very smart, very switched on, and for a very younger coach. I know he's been in the game a few years, of course, but for a very younger coach, he got his, I would call them men, playing superbly well. They're very clever with their fouls, whether we liked it or not. And at the end of the day, they did everything they did to get the 3 points when we're in behind goal. They pulled us back. The odd foul here and there to stop our momentum, and we played their game in the end, and not the other way around. So. So, like I said, signs of green shoots and all that, but they were very smart. And we, at the end of the day, we didn't do enough to win the game. And it's one of these ones where you can sit back and say, fair enough, we move on. We've got to move on. So, as you say, early in the season, but we'll just have to crack on. That's all we can do, isn't it? At the end of the day,
of course it is. And you know what, we said this last year that I still think we rise to the occasion when you're playing a footballing team, and that's no disrespect to Stevenage, but I watched Bolton on Sunday, and it was a similar kind of thing. They actually really want to get it out wide and play some decent football, and get it into the box and try and slide passes across for people to score. And against Stockport, it just wasn't effective because they're a big team of brutes. But I think if we played Bolton in a few weeks, we'd probably have a great game of football with them. I do. I think we'd probably react more to the way they play. They're not a team of sloggers. They're not a team of giants. We still need to address this. We can't be bullied on our own pitch by Stevenage or anybody else, though. We have to sort that out, because you will come across 6, 8, 9, 10 sides in this league at least that will do that. And we have to be better at it. We've not been very good at it for 2 seasons, really.
No, I agree with you. Before we look into the game, let's talk about a positive signing today in Michael Eboué, I'm trying to pronounce his name, but a signing that absolutely needs nurturing, a signing that when it comes to playing at Derby, he was absolutely incredible and they loved him, and then obviously the move to Palace somewhat was detrimental to his career, and there's been videos of him plastered when he was in pre-season friendlies against Man United and the under-18s and under-21s scoring some incredible goals. So if we get that side of that player, it's going to be exciting. It's going to be, like he spoke about, a player that's going to bring us to the edge of our seats. But I think Bruce has been quite shrewd in this signing. If he get him, wrap his arm around him and say, listen, son, you're going to play for me. We're going to resurrect your career like we seem to do at Blackpool. It's going to be potentially a really good signing. And there was talk of on X that there was potentially no fee because they're paying off his wages and we're signing him on a whatever we're signing him on, and potentially a big sell-on fee. Obviously, we don't know the fee, and there was no mention of it, was there? But how are you feeling about the signing first and foremost?
I think when I first heard his name, I remember him scoring against us, and I watched the video of it again today. We didn't. He didn't have to do much to score, to be fair. But even so, I remember him. I think he's the kind of player that you would still have thought he would have had a future in the Championship. I think I'm quite surprised that we've managed to get him. I know he didn't have a very good time at Oxford on loan in the Championship. I get that. I just think at the early age that he's at, he's probably already at a crossroads with his career where he kind of either needs to kick on or he's going to fall down the leagues and be like so many talented young players that have had so much so early and had so much promise and then fallen by the wayside. Having probably already made a few quid in his life, but if he loves football, that's not what it's about, is it? And Bruce is the ideal person to get the best out of him and bring him back to earth. As I put in the podcast chat, if you want some reality, have a quick walk down Central Drive for 10, 15 minutes, look at your new town where you're playing, and then realise that this is, it's men's football, isn't it? He's had some about Derby, I know that, but playing for Palace's under 21s or whatever is not going to toughen you up. So hopefully he finds a home, and we are very good at taking people who have been cast aside by other clubs and turn them into very good players. We've done it numerous times, haven't we? That Blackpool fans will love you if you are a winger, if you're tricky, and also if you're just giving it all, and you're exciting, and you get you off your seat. Then he's going to be loved. I think he'll either be a great success or not, if that makes sense. I think it'll either go one way or another.
So what you said is either going to be good or is not, like most signings, right?
He won't be mid, as kids say. He won't be a mid signing. He's either going to be absolutely frigging brilliant or he's going to be very disappointing and he'll be shipped off after a year. But I'm optimistic and think that he's got all the attributes of being a really top player for us in a league where I think he should be taking the mick, frankly, week in, week out at this level.
Yeah. Mike said, I'm looking forward to seeing him play. Hopefully he can live up to his potential. I think that sums it up really well. I think his Blackpool career or his footballing career is going to be decided by him and his attitude. Like I've read through social media today, Oxford fans, etc., when he left, saying because he got recalled early or sent back to Palace early because of his attitude. He was training away from everyone and stuff, and it all read really negatively. But I think Bruce wouldn't sign someone when he's got loads of options available if he didn't think there was something within that, to flourish. And as you say, if he shows any signs of like he was doing with Palace during pre-season, I think Ten Hag was United's manager, so maybe just over a year ago, before the start of last season, season before last. But he's absolutely going to, like you say, in League One against some of the defenders that play for some of these teams. I mean, some are brilliant, but overall, when you've got that ability, he should be creating chances, scoring goals, and certainly, be exciting talent to watch. So I am looking forward to it. I'd rather have him than not, just to see if it does work out, of course. And of course, we needed absolutely a winger, and now we're kind of complete on either side, depending on what he decides to do with Bloxham and what he decides to do with potentially even a new signing on the right wing, or whether he uses Bloxham up front. It will be interesting to see once he's back. So MB's put, I assume he is a bag of trips type winger. I've not seen any vids of him. Well, if you haven't seen vids of him, like any YouTube video in the world, he looks like the next Ronaldinho. But yes, MB, he's slight player with rapid pace, a decent caliber of skills within him, and he gets down the wing, cuts inside, scored a few beautiful goals. He scored from the halfway line or just over the halfway line in one of his videos. Keeper obviously clearly off his line, but is someone that Bruce alluded to when he said that they'll get you off your seat, and if that's the case, then obviously we're going to love him at Bloomfield Road, and it'll be interesting to see. I'm assuming he goes straight into the squad for Saturday because he will want to revert back to 4-4-2 after the performance we put in. So Bison Bloxham is a winger. Let's just get that correct from the off. I absolutely, Bison's Mr. Positivity. I fully agree with you. I think he's going to be amazing out wide, but he was used between up front and out wide for Blackpool before. So or never start. I don't think he ever started a game out wide, did he? This was because Apter played every game. He played every game up front last time out. Every start was up front. He liked to drift wide, like we spoke about against Exeter last time. So whether Bruce sees him as a striker because that's where he used him last time, or if he's going to revert back because Apter's now left and he's not going to nurture that career anymore, of course. So it'd be interesting to see. I agree with you, Bison's absolutely, but it's up to Bruce where he plays him at the end of the day. And if he sees him as a striker, then he's going to play him there, isn't he? So it's good to have options, though. Nonetheless, when these players come back, Martin, we're going to have a bench which looks 10 times better than it did Saturday or during pre-season. Talking to Steve Bruce, we are going to share. First and foremost, his thoughts on the game on Saturday, his post-match reaction. So bear with me and I'll load that now.
Well, Steve, not the result I'm sure you were looking for on the opening day. How do you assess today's game?
First of all, I'd like to say well done to the supporters. I thought they were absolutely terrific and got off to a great start. Give them something to shout about. The frustration for me is, the goals that we've gifted them today is like something you see off on a playground, isn't it? And it's killed us. We just, when we started, we've gifted them, 2 to 3 goals we've gifted them from just individual error. And we're really disappointed because apart from that, and we were a bit threadbare at times, but the attitude of the players to try and get back into it was great to see. But we've, as I said, killed ourselves with 3 horrible mistakes.
And after all the hard work throughout pre-season, you can't account for individual errors like that at times, can you?
There's nothing in management you can do with individual error, especially defensively. It's all about concentration, and that's why the big players don't make them sort of mistakes. And unfortunately today, we've made them, and it's cost us.
You touched on the injury situation there. You had to put round pegs in square holes, really, at times.
Yeah, we had
didn't you?
Yeah, we went to we went to a back 4 as quick as we could. We didn't think we could risk Emile. Certainly he made us better and brighter. We can see what a good player he's going to be for us. But we have to improve defensively. It's the area which was our Achilles heel last year. We conceded far too many goals, and unfortunately we've started again in a horrible trait we've got of giving silly soft goals away, which unfortunately it'll hurt us.
How tough is that when you prepare with a back?
I'll stop sharing at that point. Martin, a face of pure frustration. You could not only, body language speaks for way over, half of how we interact with people, and immediately he looked like the life has been drained from him because he was so frustrated. I assume, like any manager, he was looking forward to getting the season started at Bloomfield Road against Stevenage. Don't get me wrong, it was evidently a tough game, but he would have looked at that fixture and said it's a really good opportunity for us to put everything into place and get 3 points in front of a buzzing Bloomfield Road. But you could see from individual errors and obviously losing the match, he was devastated.
Yeah, because Steve Bruce he'll be absolutely sort of still scratching his head about how it doesn't matter who the personnel is, they seem to make the same sort of mistakes. I mean, obviously we'll go through the goals, but when you've got new signings making mistakes and he's thinking, well, I brought these guys in to replace the people who made mistakes last year and they're still doing it. You have to wonder, because he prided himself on being a great defender. Steve Bruce is what everyone knows about him. He loved defending, and you would think that it would be watertight under him. It's the other way around. We can score goals for fun, but we can't keep them out. I believe we will, though. I do genuinely believe that we will turn into a decent defensive unit. We really need to with the players we've got. There's no excuse for it. But he was very frustrated, and as we all were, because without those silly mistakes, I know we weren't great, but we don't lose the game. It's obvious to say, but silly mistakes have cost us all 3 goals. All 3 goals were absolute giveaways when you look back at them.
Yeah, they were. We'll come on to the goals now because we'll have an Exeter guest waiting for us soon as well. So you got a jam-packed show tonight, of course, but probably the place we didn't know, despite the injuries, was the goalie. In hindsight, was it the right choice? Who knows? We don't know if Ravazoli would have made the same mistakes as well. But we started off with Peacock Farrow and a back 3 of Casey, Horsfall and Ikwe. One of the most solid back 3s you could probably ask for in League One. Obviously, they all probably prefer to play as a 2, but they're all very capable centre-backs, of course. Right wing back Lyons, left wing back Coulson, and then midfield 3. of Honeyman, Evans, and Brown. Again, on paper, when they're all in their pomp or when they're all in decent form, you couldn't ask for 3 better central midfielders unless you're like me and pray for Albie Morgan every game. And the front two, of course, Ennis and Fletcher, because they're the options we had available. The lineup itself, Martin, we did prepare somewhat for this formation. They trained in that formation, of course, all week. Is the best we could have offered at that point, and one that started very well.
Yeah, there was no sign of it to start with. Look, we had a year of 3-5-2 under Critchley. We don't want to go back to it, but he's in a position where, a month ago, 5-6 weeks ago, he had, 3 wingers at the club, and then preparing for that game, he had one that had just come in on loan, and everybody else either sold or unavailable. So he had to change it. And I know you can work on it all you want in training, but nothing replicates a game situation. And clearly, I think some of the players were not comfortable playing it. Not comfortable playing it at all, and it was but there was no sign of it to start with, particularly, like you say. But it became glaringly obvious that that people were not comfortable in those positions, and if you're not comfortable, you don't want to be spending too much time playing around with it at the back either, do you? And we did a little bit too much of that too, and invited people onto us a bit.
Yeah, I mean, I'll caveat that with saying they may not have looked comfortable throughout the game. I just want to go back to TT's shout, by the way. I think it's a really honest analysis on Bruce. Every time I see Bruce get mad off loss, it makes me feel better because he just gets it. Unlike Critchley, he would have made up some excuses, which I don't want to drag Critchley's mud through the name anymore. We've got to let it go, but he is right. I think was it after the Port Vale game when he said, "If I knew how to change it to make us win, I would have done it." And I was like, "You're right, manager."
Yeah, God, that was
absolutely.
Jesus, yes, yeah. No, Bruce is very honest. You get.
Yeah, no, of course. Yeah. I was just going to caveat with what you said with them feeling uncomfortable with Matsy Case. Sorry if I pronounced that incorrectly, but it looked like we're all match fit, but not a single player was match sharp. And I think that is, what it comes down to. If you're going to say this was the most pre-season season opener, that was probably right. Like, it looked great initially, and then all of a sudden they looked a lot more match sharp than us, and they started to overrun us a little bit. But like my point is, we started really well. I think the shape and the midfield actually, as a whole, it felt really nice. When Brown hit him on the counter, he hit that shot just wide. Honeyman was buzzing about, and to be fair to Evans, in the first 10 minutes, he was positive in terms of getting his foot on the ball, and Ennis making runs in behind and just holding up the play a little bit. We did start to tick quite nicely, and they had their moments as well, which we'll come on to in a second, because Peacock Farrell started the game against who was in the middle, and White, who took an excellent shot on the half volley. I don't know if it was a good save. It was definitely a routine save. He could have maybe held it to his chest, but he palmed it away out of danger. I'm not going to blame the goalie. It wasn't, didn't put us in any danger. But they started the game with a little warning sign of that snapshot, Martin, and you kind of think at least Peacock Farrell was awake to that moment, because if that trickles into the net, obviously it starts to escalate from there. But it was a half decent save to start the game.
Yeah, it was. But like you say, routine. If you're letting that in, that's going to send massive alarm bells. And I think the point about the formation and looking comfortable is that apart from that, until they scored, I don't think they really crossed the halfway line and bothered us too much. I think the formation looked okay when not under pressure. And apart from that one chance, I didn't think we were. And obviously we started the game very well. But then I think it was exposed when they all of a sudden got a grip of it and started to realise where they could hurt us. But yeah, it was a decent enough kind of opening save from Peacock Farrell, but one that any goalkeeper should expect to save.
Yeah, both Bison's and Mike has actually alluded. On the replay, it looks like it swerves last minute as well, which is why I said, palms it away out of danger was pretty good. It moved all different directions and late swerve. So, Barapod, I was going to come on to that. That Stevenage formation is wrong. Houghton and White were DM, and Roberts were right wing camp, and Kemp moved into the central position a lot more, and that's where obviously he scored the goal, which meant that they matched us more in the midfield than this suggests, of course, which is why the game was at some points obviously quite a battle in the midfield. But Pete said he hit it hard and it was swerving away, so it was a good save in the first minute. Yeah, we'll come on to to Honeyman's goal, a foul. Evans took the free kick quite quickly. What I liked about Coulson's movement here is he obviously dropped his shoulder and ducked his head to get around the corner to Honeyman, who was obviously in the mood to create an opportunity from midfield advancing towards the box. Kind of messes up a little bit, as does the Stevenage defender. He loses track of the ball a little bit, but I don't know if anyone would have done this, but I'd like to say that Honeyman was really alert to it, using his experience to nip it away from him instead of crossing the ball. Slams it past Marshall and goal, and it was the perfect start to the season, obviously, in front of the South Stand, and a great start to his career in a tangerine shirt, and a really smart goal.
It was a smart goal, and it's tenacious, isn't it? It's the tenacity to kind of lose it and then have the. I thought he did that for the whole time he was on the pitch. Honeyman, is that he was battling away, and he looks like a winner to me. He looks like somebody who's not going to shirk his responsibilities and get stuck in, and while he's not the biggest, he doesn't need to be necessarily, but his persistence in just getting the ball back and then firing it in was brilliant. It gives everyone a lift as well, doesn't it? It gives everyone a massive lift, and you think, we've got a good player on our hands here, and we've made a great start. And for the rest of the half, then that was the positivity gone, wasn't it? Almost.
I like Peter here. Our opening goal of the season with our new signing. It was terrible defending. All 5 guys were awful defenders, but he took it well. He did take it well.
Yeah, it was. I agree.
Thank you for joining the chat, Peter. Peter will be joining the podcast crew very soon as well, so looking forward to having him on as well. Boropod, Houghton tried to dribble the ball out, leaving the ball behind him. So it was awful. But yeah, it was a great goal, and as you say, Honeyman, and we'll come on to about who impressed us the most as well. But the Honeyman goal was brilliant. But with brilliance in terms of the finish comes stupidity with Horsfall. The whole goal was avoidable from Coulson into the corner to the ball being passed back to then Horsfall receiving the ball and thinking Peacock Farrell's a yard away from him. And if any decent striker like Jamie Reid is, obviously at international level as well, had the awareness to obviously intercept the ball. It was a ridiculous pass back, and it was a smart finish around Peacock Farrell, and then just alluded Casey was trying to close it in off the line, but a sickener of a goal when we're building up a little bit of momentum.
Yeah, there's just nothing. There's no silver lining of that goal, is there? You've got a lot of expectation on a good signing. Stockport's captain, the first signing of the summer, his first competitive game, his first meaningful involvement. He does that. You can't legislate for it. You cannot legislate for that. Just sort of seemed to be. I don't know. I need to look at it again. I think he looks to me like maybe he can't. Is he right-footed? Isn't he, Horsfall? He's trying to play it with his. He doesn't want to play it with that foot, so he kind of makes a bit of a deal of it, and there we go.
Yeah, Ben B said, I thought it was a push on Horsfall after the ball had gone, maybe. I still think he looks to pass it back to Peacock Farrell, and TT said, I think it's gone under the radar that Peacock Farrell's position was shocking for the first goal. I think there's 2 things. I think he should either be closer to the pass or he needs to rush out quicker, because he doesn't make his mind up, and that's why he's so easy to take it round him. Yeah. And Nate has said from Boropod, was a little surprised the foul wasn't given in the build-up when Roberts won it on the press. Yeah, most refs would give it, though it is soft. At the end of the day, definitely a foul. I mean, yeah, at the end of the day, I get it, but we've still made the mistake at the back, and it didn't look a good goal regardless. There was in League One, in League Two, and even the Championship, we get horrendous refs, and sometimes you want to let the game flow and there's a little nudge, and sometimes when you conceded, you want it to be a foul, but it wasn't pretty. And there were so many times last season, more recently Bristol Rovers at home as an example, where Bruce already alluded to it, we are absolutely just catastrophic at the back sometimes, even though technically we've got some really switched on players. So a poor goal to concede nonetheless, but it wasn't only a few minutes later when the ball drops to Ennis in the box from some more ricocheting defending. The ball falls to him nicely, and I personally am not going to dig out Ennis. I thought he had an incredible game, but I think he should slam this home, either place it into the corner or do a lot better with his shot. The power he put into it was evidently unnecessary. Obviously, he snapped at it a little bit, but I think he maybe didn't realise where he was in the goal, but almost bang central of the goal. And for me, the ball should be hitting the back of the net at 1-1.
Yeah, he's got to make the keeper work. Totally. Yeah. Is he leaning back slightly? It looked as well, but yeah, you would expect him to score it. Definitely, you would definitely expect him to score it. It's hard to fault him for the game that he had overall, but yeah, they're the sort of chances that, as he proved later on, that he's, I mean, actually, I don't know. You could argue the goal he scores actually a bit more difficult just because of the calmness he has to where it has to place it. But yeah, from down the other end, it looked like he should have scored to me. But that's the thing, is that every mistake should be avoidable as a football fan, and every goal miss should be a goal. But yes, yeah, balance of probability, you would expect him to hit the target, wouldn't you?
Yeah, the good thing was he showed the awareness to obviously keep chasing the ball down and create that opportunity. So, he
and he did it all game as well. He does, he's one. He doesn't give up. He's a dying breed of he's just a pain in the arse, isn't he?
Penalty, Martin. You said you've only seen it from one angle. I've watched it several times. He does look to slap the ball off his forehead from what I can see. Whether it's on that, it looks to me that he's doing exactly what he thought he was going to get away with. Some people say there was never a penalty. I personally believe it absolutely was. The ball's on his forehead, and he kind of slaps it away from him. He moves his ball to the hand as well, and it's a good spot by the ref. Although it looks like it's out of the blue, for me it's a penalty. And on the stroke of half time, when we really didn't get going after the first goal, and I thought Stevenage did well to control the game in the middle. They built up a little pressure, obviously a foul, balls crossed into the box, and Icky was, I don't know if I'm being extreme, but it was unnecessary at the end of the day because there wasn't much danger and he was trying to get it away from being flicked on, I suppose, unless he wasn't, and it was a genuine mistake, but it did look like he was just trying to be cheeky and get the ball away from him. But I don't know how you feel in the chat, but for me, it was a blatant penalty.
Do you know, it's difficult as well because I've only the angle I saw it from was not very good, and somebody texted me at half time and said it was never a penalty. But when you're watching it on the EFL stream as well, you don't get tons of replays, do you, necessarily from a great angle? So I have to bow to the people who've seen it more often. So I don't know. I'm sure somebody will tell us.
Yeah. No. Yeah, Peacock Farrell does well with the penalty as well in terms of getting to it. But
yeah, he did. Yeah.
When the keeper saves it half, and it still hits the back of it, you kind of feel like they should have saved the penalty, shouldn't you? But it was one of them ones, like he did well to get down to it, but gutted that he didn't save it. Of course, it would have been, a really good confidence booster for him, and we would have come out the second half maybe a little different. So it was right in front of us in the north, and we all missed it. The handball, it looked like the crowd didn't know what was going on. So we move on to more positive. A more positive moment in the game, and I've actually named this "Playing Out from the Back." Sarcasm, everybody, of course. But the third goal, Dan Kemp coming back to haunt us. The pass to Casey, the Casey to back to Peacock Farrell. Peacock Farrell seeing nothing in front of him clearly to pass the ball with such weak power, and not just trying to get the ball back up the pitch away from danger, because they pressed really well in that final third, and the wingers did their job really well, and it was a horrific pass. I think there was a couple of mistakes there, like that anyone could have gone long when they received the ball, and we should have learned this from pre-season as well. I don't know if it'll be a Brucey thing to want to play out from the back so intricately. It might be a thing that he said keep calm and stay on the ball and stuff. But if you can't see the pass, the basics is let's just get it out, and it would have got us back up the pitch a little bit more. But I'll credit to Stevenage if we pressured like that, and we did. We said well done to Ashley Fletcher when he chased down at Doncaster in the friendly. But it looked a mess considering the quality we've got at the back.
I think I was listening to Radio Lancashire on the way home, and they were talking about it with Mick Payne, who I've had a couple of chats with on X, and he's a he's a summariser for Radio Lancs and lots of other radio stations, goalkeeping coach, and he was just saying that goalkeepers at the end of the day are not footballers, and they were talking like a lot of people blame Pep Guardiola for this sort of goalkeepers trying to play out, but that's because Pep Guardiola is playing with world-class players, and Edison is a world-class footballer. And he can actually receive, that their players can receive a pass and he can make passes, and he rarely cocks it up. League One goalkeepers are just League One goalkeepers. They should just be concentrating on saving shots and using the hands. They can't do it. they can't do it. You saw the Barnet keeper did it against Fleetwood, didn't he? Almost the same moment, I think, in their game. About 52 minutes, he decided to come out and try and be a footballer and lost it and looked like an absolute wally. So people have just got to stop doing it. And hopefully Bruce has had a word with him and said, don't do that again, son. But the thing is, Ravazoli did that against Fylde a couple of times. We were really dodgy with his feet. So I hope we're not cursed with a couple of goalkeepers who want to try.
Tyra did it against Bristol Rovers. There was a time where, you know, that we were
all doing
pissing about with it around the back last season. And it just looked awful. And I think if we're going to have... a team based on the foundations of being a proud Bruce team, he was a brute of a defender that we just know how to defend. Stockport know how to defend. Wrexham knew how to defend, and they did not piss about of it at the back. You got to cut that out. You know, if we were playing a Bolton or Huddersfield, they could score 2 or 3. You know, just from that sort of pressure with the quality they got on their side. And Stevenage did a really good job at crowding us and suffocating us when we felt uncomfortable. And that's why they had so much joy. You know, their little fouls around the pitch. And, you know, when we were through on goal, I think it's Piers Yarn, he got a yellow card for pulling down his man because he knew he was just not going to get to the ball. So, you know, maybe Casey or something would have tried chasing him down, but they were very switched on to moments like that, and we weren't. And it goes back to Matsy's comment earlier about not being match sharp or match ready, although they were fit. Evidently, they just weren't switched on to little things in and around the game, and that was very lethargic and it was very thoughtless. So, like you said, Bruce is gonna have a word, and after the game, which we showed at the top of the show, that he was fuming. So, 3-1, and no real going back. But we'll talk about the positives a little more. First and foremost, Emil Hansen coming on at half time. I said Brucey didn't want to risk him early doors, but he did want to risk him for 45 minutes because I don't think he felt like he had a choice. But he had a positive game. He's 17 out of 20 accurate passes. He only had 28 touches of the ball, but overall he was as soon as we got like a winger type player on, not only you can go through his statistics, but he just offered a bit of sharpness, a bit of intelligence, and a bit of excitement rather than it being like a very dull, hate to say it, what we used to under Critchley 3-5-2 that was very predictable, and Stevenage, were all over us like a nasty rash, and they did a really good job in the middle, as I've already alluded to. But he offered a bit of unpredictability and made us play a little bit better despite that third goal going in. Obviously, if you come on at 2-1 and we don't concede that, we build a lot more momentum, don't we?
Yeah, we do. And a few weeks down the line, him starting is quite a scary prospect with the other players we've got. I've watched the Tom Brady documentary on Amazon about Birmingham, and Hansen features in that quite a bit, especially early on in the season when he was fit and he was starting, and he was the catalyst, I think, for when they came back against Reading. I think he set up the goal or was certainly involved in it, and he just looks a cut above him. I think they paid $1.5 million for him a year ago. So this lad,
it was touted to be well over $1 million, and the fact we've got him on loan means not that we've paid $1 million, but we've got $1 million pound-player in our squad, haven't we? So.
We have, yeah. Hopefully we'll have 2 or 3. But no, he's clearly a very good player that's just had injury problems, and the Birmingham City fans were not taking the mick when they said, he could be one of the best players in League One or some of them said the best, but that might be pushing it. But hey, actually, he probably should be one of the best. So it'll be great.
Hercules were outstanding in his statistics. I know, like, we go on about stats, and the stats don't show what people actually do on the pitch, but I think whatever it was something like 26 goals and 18 assists. If you've got that many assists, you've played well all season at the end of the day, because there's all not coming in a few games, is it? That is literal consistency.
No, it's just a shame he signed so late on in the week, which you can't help, that that we couldn't have maybe got him in. If we got him in the Monday or the Tuesday, they might have been able to play a different formation, because, as I say, he was our only winger, wasn't he? But it is what it is. He will end up, if he stays fit, I'm sure he'll be a fantastic player for us, and he'll be very difficult to keep out of the team.
Yeah, we'll come on to Preston's TT in a bit. But yeah, Jordan Brown was immense. We'll come on to that in a second. And Matsy's put Hansen's little flicks. Yeah, just that technical ability and why people would have paid that much money for him is going to offer such depth, and unpredictability is probably my favourite word for him, because if we've got Malcolm, I'm going to call him Malcolm for now because I'm going to to kill that surname just by talking normally. I'll learn it. Icky and Malcolm, they're the two godsends to my pronunciations. But yeah, if we've got them either side, like you say, even Bloxham, and Hansen, and I know Bloxham can play on either wing, but it's much better on the right. We're going to have a little bit more depth. Obviously, we can bring, if we start Hansen, we can bring on Hamilton when they're tired, etc. And God knows what we're going to do. Potentially, fingers crossed, it's all done. After Taylor, he said, the squad is going to look considerably different. He even used the word unrecognisable, Martin. So I don't know if Taylor and Malcolm are the only two that's going to make us and Hansen unrecognisable, whether we've got more irons in the fire. But it's certainly going to be an interesting last couple of weeks of the window, for sure. We've got to move on because our guest is waiting. We'll round off with a beautiful. This reminded me somewhat of a worse version of the Bolton goal, with a chip over the top from Brown, putting it into the danger area. Ennis beating the same striker, of course, beating the offside trap, and Stevenage defenders really not reacting very well to the ball over the top. And I said this to Nate Burropod. In the previews, he said you won't get anything through the middle, and I said to Hoggy after the pod, I said, well, actually, if we've got that much creativity in the middle, we should be trying to play it in behind a lot more, because they are brutes of men, Good and Piagiani. But if you're playing it in behind or chipping a ball over the top, they've got absolutely no chance against Ennis.
They're not quick.
And that's where we reap the rewards a little bit. But alas, after that, we didn't create anything apart from that Fletcher flick on. But we'll talk about Ennis's first goal of the season, obviously not for Blackpool, but of the season. A smart finish. I think Marshall gave him the space to put it to his right, but he was smart enough to do that. Yeah,
really good finish. He made up for his earlier miss, and you want your strikers to get off the mark, don't you? There's a lot expected of Ennis. He's another one. He's going to be on a very good deal here, which you have to do to get players of his ilk from a higher level. And he scored, and if he stays fit, I would expect Ennis to get 15 to 20 this season. You would have thought, wouldn't you?
I expect it, if I'm honest. Yeah, he's a very high caliber striker. He's done it in this league before. He looks better than in terms of his fitness, and I'm so happy. One, he's permanent, and two, he's got a full season. Full seasons with us, but the fact that we're not just getting him on loan and he's not really played that much, and so on and so forth. He's had time with the squad, and I genuinely think, and I think, who was it? Someone said in there, I think it was Nick, said he'll outscore what Yates did when we got promoted this season, and he'll become a fan's favourite very quickly. I think he's already ticked off the box of being a fan's favourite. Ole. But he's certainly, for me, is going to be someone who we're going to rely on this season, and is going to pop up with a lot of goals. So,
can you imagine having two players like him playing up front? Nudge, nudge, wink, wink.
Yeah, I can, and fingers crossed. It comes to fruition. We get a mixture. I think we need potentially, if Bloxham's going to be that right winger, as Bison's alluded to, and I've agreed with, we need two more strikers, because Kouassi's evidently not going to play a part. And if we have Fletcher, Ennis, Taylor, and someone else on loan, then I'm really excited to see what we can do up top. But let us know in the comments as we move on to our last subject before we introduce Sam, the Exeter fan, who's going to help us dissect the opposition on Saturday. Who impressed you the most on Saturday? I'm going to give my 2 pence worth now by speaking about, if you want to do Honeyman, I think there's only 2 or 3 players that really did impress. But for you, Martin, what does Jordan Brown add to this Blackpool squad? He played 90 minutes. Accurate passes were 75%, but accurate long balls were 9 out of 15, which we needed from the middle. But he did a lot off the ball. He's a lot of energy, and is someone we was desperately missed throughout the 3 or 4 years. We haven't had anyone like that, have we? Since Keith Southern, we really spoke about, should I say. He had a chance really early on. Again, I'm being really cynical, but I think the ball should find the back of the net. He misses, by a yard, an inch or so, wasn't it, past the post. And I think he was a bit annoyed at himself because he scored better goals from bigger distances. But what's Jordan Brown added to the squad, do you think, and what was your opinion of him on Saturday? Sorry,
we just didn't have anybody of his type, like you said. We've been crying out for someone like that. I mean, certainly since Dougal left, somebody you can break up the play, and also he obviously can get forward as well. He did remind me of the sort of runs that Keith Southern used to make in a lot of ways. He's obviously not as physical necessarily, but he's a good player who gets his foot in, and he's a very good League One player doing what he does. And we I think sometimes we've overcomplicated our midfield and brought players that are maybe brought players in that are not what we needed, or they've been too similar. But I was impressed with him. I like his energy. I like his work rate. He's certainly not gonna go hiding. I don't think. He's not going to go missing in games. You just need to find the right partner for him. And Evans struggled on Saturday, as he did for the second half of last season. Just the quality wasn't there. But I like him. I think he's exactly what we needed. And Leyton Orient fans were trying to make out they weren't that bothered about him going. But I think you miss a player like that, you're probably going to miss him more when he's gone and you realise he's not there.
And I think that's what a lot of Orient fans said. They're really annoyed because they've signed a player called Backerson. If you don't know him, he played for Wycombe before as well, and he's 6'27". But someone said I'm 25 stone and I could outrun him, so he doesn't look potentially like he's going to get about the pitch as mobile as Brown did. For me, he's like you say, whether it's in a 2 or whether it's in a 3. We've got the ability to mix it up now. I think we go to a 4-4-2, 4-2-3-1, or 4-3-2-1, however he wants to play it. He could go 3 at the back, but I don't think he'll default to that now. I think if we want to go more attack, and this squad is set up to be a 4-3-3, and it could be genuinely frightening to go back to sort of Holloway's formation and the right balance of players in this team to be quite frightening in the attack. But if not, a 4-4-2 formation will suit. He's just got to find the combination of the two midfielders that does it right. But for me, Honeyman is, if he is okay, I know he's in a boot, and from what I understand from people that I've spoken to, he's got synthetic. I can't think of the word now. Like fibers in his foot, and he always puts it up in a boot when it gets knocked, and usually it's 2 or 3 days, and he's kind of fit again. But maybe he won't be risked Saturday, who knows? But I don't think it's as bad as we fear. But there's been no news so far. But as someone already said in the chat, I already had that in my notes, but thank you for bringing it up, of course. George Honeyman was the most fouled player in the match. I think they targeted him in terms of being a playmaker and someone that's going to make a difference. But not only did he score a fantastic goal with his only shot of the game, he clearly showed the technical ability and awareness with his off-the-ball runs and breaking up play that we desperately need. And with Brown, they complement each other really well. And I hope he's not injured for the long term, because he is superb.
Yeah, he is. He definitely is. A bit of quality. He played a lot of games for Millwall last season. Again, I think without Steve Bruce, we don't sign him and don't sign quite a lot of players. So it's another testament to the power of Bruce. Yeah, good player, really good player. Hope he's not out for long, because we need every quality player we can get, and we have signed some really good quality. We are building a very, very good squad when everyone's fit. Very, very good. Completely
agree. Some massive shout outs for Ashworth, who come on, of course, and he did step up to the plate, and I completely agree. We've probably got 3 left backs that can't really nail down a place for different reasons. I think Hubby's probably our best defender. Coulson's by far our best attacker in terms of that position, and Ashworth is a bit of the unknown, but showed what he could do at Bolton, and he could potentially make that place his own. So, really good shout for Ashworth. And Mike said second half, Ennis. Not only did he score, I actually think his build-up play was better. His hold-up play was 10 times better than Fletcher, who didn't have his best game in Tangerine. I'm not going to drag him over the coals, because second half of last campaign, he was everybody's favourite player, including the team. So I think his strength, even though he's quite slight, and you said he looks a bit leaner and fitter, the way he backs into players and protected the ball against Piergiani and Good, and laid it off to the midfield and stuff in flashes, in moments, which showed, I think he's really switched on this campaign, and he looked match sharp. That Matsy said earlier that a lot of players didn't. He did look match sharp, and so did Honeyman and Brown, and I think the rest of them probably lacked behind, and that's why we weren't. So we switched on to Stevenage's unity in the middle, and they fully deserved the win. But 5 horrific goals to concede either way or score either way, but they'll be laughing, back to Stevenage with 3 points. But we move on, Martin, to Exeter. It was a game to forget somewhat, but as you say, it was a lot of reasons to be positive, with fingers crossed with Taylor coming in and the signings that Bruce has already alluded to. So I'm looking forward to seeing what comes of the transfer window first and foremost, but how this team starts to gel in the future. Saturday wasn't wasn't a reflection of what the season's going to be, of course, and we can't overreact to it. But we've got to turn up for Exeter now, and helping us preview Exeter. Sam has been waiting patiently for Saturday's opponents. Going to give us a great insight, and it's been literally a year. I'm sorry we haven't spoken that much in between, but I'm really happy to have you back, mate. How are you?
Yeah, thanks for having me on, guys. I'm really good. How are you guys doing?
Yeah. We'll get, like, this is therapy, isn't it? At the end of the day, we talk through the game, and we're less angry about the game on Saturdays. It's one of them ones. You're at home to Stevenage, and no disrespect to Stevenage, I think a lot of people, even not the top 20, I think had them in the top 8, because Revel's doing a really good job of assembling a decent squad, and they're very much a manly squad, but also can play football with the 7 wingers they've got as well. So it was a frustrating sort of below the belt punch, because we expected at least a point. We drew so many at home last season, but yeah, it's with the news of a signing today, and hopefully Del Taylor coming in, I'm in much better space, mate. Martin, are you okay?
Thank you for asking. No. I agree with Tom. I think we have a lot of reasons to be optimistic. I think one thing I was going to say, and just when we were reviewing the Stevenage game, is that it's kind of weird, I think, sometimes for professional footballers to play a pre-season for a month and all of a sudden go straight into game mode. That I often don't see what the difference would be from playing the last pre-season game on a Saturday to playing the following week. Some teams, some players might not still be ready for it in terms of sharpness, because those games that we've watched over pre-season have been pretty diabolical. I don't know about you, Exeter, but they're not the same, are they? I dread pre-season. I've had 34 of them as a Blackpool fan. I don't like them. Like Steve Bruce always says, I don't like them. I think they're pointless. I'd rather just hear about them on X rather than actually watch them, because I just don't really want to. I want to see the real thing, but I don't think we're ready for the real thing on Saturday. I don't know how Exeter were, but I don't think we were.
No, I've got to agree. I think everyone's in agreement. Pre-season games, it's just about minutes and legs. I don't think anyone's particularly fussed about the actual football that's played. But yeah, I think you could tell it for us on Saturday that the boys were still kind of in pre-season mode. We had Doncaster away, lost 1-0. Not a very thrilling game at all. It was decided by a penalty in the 88th minute from a handball. Having seen the replay, there's a bit of debate over it. I was down the other end, so obviously didn't see it. I see why the referee's given it, but Caldwell wasn't very happy. But, the overall game, I have to agree, it was still, not really kicked into full season yet.
No.
We will talk about Doncaster. I do have my opinions on that penalty as well. But first and foremost, we won't talk about your pre-season matches, because, as we've already alluded to, the season started. No one really cares. Talk to us about your transfer business so far this campaign. Then obviously we've got a few weeks left of the window, or 2.5 or so weeks left. Are you happy with the business you've done?
Well, happy with who's come in. I still think there's quite a few gaps in the team that Caldwell kind of, fans are pushing him to kind of fill. I think we really saw that in the first game as well. We've strengthened defensively. Defensively, I think we look really good. We got Sil Swinkles on loan from Villa, who looked a really strong defender at the weekend. Turned Yafeko into a permanent deal. It's a really strong defensive core that I think is good. Joe Whitworth coming back in goal on loan from Palace is a big one as well for us. Really impressed last season, and I think we're quite lucky to get his signature this season.
Churning out goalkeepers, aren't they? Goodman and him and a few others here.
Yeah, classic Palace. And then signing Jaden Wareham as a striker is, quite exciting for us. Obviously, he was at Reading, released by Reading. We're not really a team that goes in for these sort of young strikers with, very often in the transfer window. We normally back our own or, look to the loan market. So I think that's quite exciting as an Exeter fan, having a real number 9 that we can get behind, which, isn't really Caldwell's game plan most of the time. I think there's gaps in the wings. We kind of lack a creative player, and, Saturday showed that, and I think a lot of fans feel that. So, yeah, if I had to rate it, I'd probably say 6 out of 10 at the moment, but hopefully a few more incomings.
I was going to ask you about Wareham, because me and Martin spoke before the game. I said to him, I don't know if it's a good signing or not, because when he came through at Reading, there was signs of him being an outstanding proposition for League One and potentially Reading for the future. And all of a sudden, obviously, maybe because of Nibs and Smith, throughout their campaigns where they were pushing to for the playoffs. But I would have thought in my head, if they were potentially losing Harvey Nibs and Smith, which they did, they would have potentially kept him around. So weren't in the plans for Reading potentially, or do you think it was a case that he wanted to play a bit more football because he's a bit of the unknown in the sense of we don't know what he's going to do, of course, and like you say, someone you can get behind, but is also someone that is quite a risk, like you say, for Exeter, because he's a bit of the unknown, isn't he?
Yeah, I think it's a bit of both. I think Reading were obviously going to bring in a bigger striker this summer. Smith and Nibs going, they're going to look, Reading are a team that are going to be up that top half of the table, pushing for playoffs. Unfortunately, I don't think a 22-year-old who's a little bit of an unknown is their guy to push them into them playoffs. So I think, he saw that, but then I think he also saw, okay, I'm going to start every game at Exeter. It's great minutes in my legs. If I can kick on, then, good. And I think, it suits him playing. We're a club that really nurture and, build on young players. And I think he's seen that. He's seen what young players have done at our club and, what we can do. And I think, that's been really inviting to him. And I think he'll have a good season, as long as we get the service into him, which is critical. And we really found out on Saturday, then I think he'll come good.
Yeah, no, fair enough. Just before we talk about the Doncaster game, anyone you lost that you really wish you had? I know there was a few players that one joined your noisy neighbours a little bit, and obviously you lost Dimmy Mitchell and a few others. Like, was there any players that you really would have liked back this campaign?
Yeah, Dimmy Mitchell's the big one, I think, for most fans. He was a real sort of creative outlet when he was fit, obviously, but
yeah, he's injured again at Orient. Apparently it's not too serious, but there you go.
Yeah, that was always his problem. But he's a sort of player that, I think quite a lot of fans, okay, he's left, but we now need to replace that type of player. Something we haven't done at the moment. Obviously, Watts, the less said, the better, to be honest. Yeah, I think, we lost quite a few of them creative. Vincent Harper, another one. We lost a few of these wingers, more creative players. And unfortunately, they haven't been replaced yet, which is a little concern, I think, at the moment for most Exeter fans.
Still time. Just not before Saturday, hopefully. I watched, obviously didn't watch the full game. You have to excuse me, but I watched the extended highlights of your match. And despite you not having many shots on target, you had the ball in the area a few times, and you created from set pieces, especially. And then I think early on was it with the pass across goal and the shot that went wide, which should have hit the back of the net. Definitely, not a lot of the ball, not a lot of shots, but nonetheless, you had your moments within the game. And like you say, it probably wasn't a pretty game because Doncaster are very hard to beat at their place, and that the controversial penalty was the difference, but it probably deserved to be a draw in the end, judging by the chances you had. But I know they controlled the ball and had a lot of shots. But tell us about the game and how confident you are after it.
Yeah, by all means, it wasn't a thriller. Doncaster are a hard team to break down defensively. I think we're quite the same defensively as well. We're quite a direct team. So are they. It was a very even match, I want to say, even though they had most of the ball. There wasn't. Both teams you could see lacked that quality in the final third. We probably should have scored. And again, they missed a few opportunities. And then unfortunately, if you concede a penalty in a game like that, it's basically game over. Wasn't too happy with obviously the penalty. We were down the other end, so I didn't see it till after. I understand why the ref's given it, but then I understand, like rule changes and whatnot. And I think Caldwell was quite unhappy about that as well. I understand why, both sides. But at the end of the day, if we don't create opportunities and take them, then you run the risk against a stubborn team like Doncaster that happens.
Yeah, for me, it's not a penalty. If you got gun to my head and I watched it, it wasn't a penalty. I got a bit confused when the initial whistle went. It's a bit like when, I don't know if you've seen Blackpool's penalty against Stevenage, but he kind of slaps the ball away from me. You can see the hand move across, whereas this one is when the ball's come in, he's left his arm out slightly and it's landed on his hand. And the ref's just looked at it and gone, an easy penalty for me to give, in my opinion. It could have easily just been brushed aside and said, look, you can't help that in that moment, unless you're really strictly following by the rules. But it wasn't in an unnatural position, and he didn't have any time to move it away. And like you said, it was so late on that it was going to make all the difference. But will you let us know about the positives from the game? Like, what are you going to bring into Saturday that you could potentially, be effective against Blackpool?
I think we were quite strong defensively. Doncaster were throwing a lot of crosses into the box, and I think we dealt with that quite well. So I was quite impressed with our defensive core, to be honest, especially, given we didn't have that much of the ball, which was quite impressive. And I was also so I think, the centre-back, Still Swinkles, he's going to be a key player at the weekend. I'd expect us to go 5 at the back again, with 3 centre-backs in there, especially against quite a good team like Blackpool. I think Reece Cole in midfield is a big one for us. He's sort of the general. He was injured quite a lot last season. Having him in there and dictating play is a big one for us. And hopefully we'll try and get the ball into Jaden Wareham a bit more. He lacked that service at the weekend. If we can get the ball into him, then hopefully he can create some opportunities. That's what I think. Hopefully we shall do.
Who are the sort of the key players for you guys? I know you talked about, the lad. Was he at Rangers? The central, is he a centre half that you got, or a fullback that you got from Rangers or permanently? Is that him?
Yeah, John Lee Yafeko. We signed. Yeah. He was on loan last season. We just signed him on a permanent. He's out injured at the moment, so I don't think he'll be playing.
For how long?
I wish I also knew.
I hope it's not serious. I hope it's just a few more days.
Yeah.
He's a good player. Yeah. I remember you being very excited about him last season.
Yeah, we got a few injured at the moment. Hopefully we can get back soon. But yeah, we don't know too much at the moment. The club haven't really told us too much.
Okay. And who else is a sort of standout player for you that you think that would stand out for the Blackpool fans watching?
I think Reece Cole's probably our big one in midfield. He really dictates the play. Most of it comes through him. He's a good passer on the ball. He's got a great shot on him as well. He's a player that we always get really excited about, and him back at full fitness is always a good thing for Exeter. And then obviously Jaden Wareham. I think home debut for him. He'll look to kick on and hopefully bag a goal.
How will you set up? Because this has been it's a constant thing with Blackpool fans. We played 3-5-2 for a year under Neil Critchley a couple of seasons back, and it was not popular. And then injuries forced us into doing that on Saturday, which is not what Steve Bruce wants to do. He's very much nailed to the master 4-4-2, I think. So how do you guys set up, and how does Caldwell like to play it? Because he likes
to. Well, obviously, we're a 5 at the back team. Caldwell teams always are.
Okay.
He likes these wingers playing really high. The wing backs dropping back, going forward. We played 3 in midfield at the weekend, which is kind of standard practice. 1 attacking midfielder and then 2 holding. And then he put 2 up front, which is something we haven't seen yet, and is really interesting. He'll probably do the same at the weekend, I suspect, with Wareham and Cox. So yeah, I think a strong defensive core, looking to use them wings, and then normally a 5 at the back, 3 midfield, and we'll see what the strikers are saying.
Sure. Tom, I don't want to steal your thunder. I'm not sure if this is your next question, but I'll ask it anyway. Caldwell, how is he seen? Because I know you had a tricky run, didn't you? Because we played you in, was it January, February time, and Bloxham, we were talking about it before. He might not be fit, we don't know yet, for Saturday, but he kind of ripped you guys to bits, and we did have a very good. The season before, it was a 0-0 draw, wasn't it? It was a very frustrating game, but we opened you up quite a bit, and we're on a very
ironically
good
that was the second game of the season away from home as well.
Yeah. So I wondered, how is he perceived? Because there seems to be, as with all managers, if you go on a bad run, he's the first to kind of get the grief, isn't he? So how is he perceived, and do you think can he afford a bad start? Has he got some credit in the bank, or is it a bit 50-50?
Look, I think it's a tough one with Caldwell. He's well respected. He understands the club. He understands the ethos of the club, which is, something that's really big to Exeter fans. But we have kind of a tendency to go in spells under Caldwell. We'll start off really well, then completely dip and relegation form, and then finish strong. And it's happened the last 2 seasons. So I still think that the jury's out. I still think a lot of fans, not to criticize him or anything, are a little bit nervy. We don't want this to happen again, and we don't want the slump to happen early in the season because we know he's a bit of a streaky manager at the end of the day. So, I think Exeter fans are a little bit cautious at the moment, I'd say the word. Obviously they still get behind him. He's a great guy. We're happy to have him as the manager, but we just don't want to go on one of these losing runs again, unfortunately. And yeah, we'll see, but it has a tendency to happen.
Okay.
My next question wasn't actually going to be about Caldwell, but I'm glad you asked it. The final question, or final two questions from me is, I'm always interested in Exeter, obviously, uniquely a fan-based own club. How is that going? And is it during these sort of transfer windows? I don't mean to be sort of assumptive, but is it during these sort of transfer windows where you struggle to buy these more expensive players, or maybe pull in the better quality that you hope for, and also obviously produce players that sell for lots of money? I know you've had it previously, but not in recent history, unless I'm wrong.
Yeah, we're obviously a team that are operating on a much smaller budget. The last 3 seasons we've been in League One, we've had to exceed what our playing budget would get us in the league, which, full credit to the club for doing, and actually Gary Caldwell for doing as well. I think, the jury's still out. At the end of the day, it's a brilliant way to run a football club. We're all really proud of it. But, there's questions at the moment. Is there a ceiling to this? How do we deal with it? This transfer window, we still need reinforcements at the end of the day. There's not a massive budget there. So questions are going to be asked about, the setup of the club. Should we look for outside investment? So it's something really interesting. And I think the club are coming under a bit more scrutiny about it. Something that could increase if, we don't kick on now. But yeah, it does get a bit tough in transfer windows, and our location in the country as well isn't the greatest thing in the world when you're looking for players that are Manchester-based, London-based, things like that. So it's really interesting, and I think the club deserve a lot of credit. But, there's questions about the ceiling, I think, at the moment.
Yeah, perfectly leads into my next and final question from me anyway, that what each season, obviously you have expectations as a club. What's the short-term sort of aspirations of Exeter, especially including this season? Where is that next step for you guys, other than trying to live out the same play every single season, which obviously becomes fairly monotonous and then equally frustrating as football fans? Yeah,
I think, number one goal, I've probably said this before on here, is to stay up. We're a team that are out punching our financial budget. If we can stay in League One, that's a hell of a lot better than, kicking around in League Two for seasons on repeat, especially after it took us so long to get up into League One. I know there's ambitions within the club to push on and hopefully into the top 10 and be a competitive team in League One. Will that happen this season? Jury's still out on that. I personally doubt it this season a little bit. But, I think this season obviously is stay up. But I think long term, the club want to push into a top 10 in League One. But, the jury's really out. And I think, this season, I think, is all about staying up, unfortunately.
Any questions, Martin, before we wrap up?
Well, I just wanted to just go back to what you said just quickly about location, because over the past few days, I've spent a lot of time for my sins on Plymouth's forum, just reading, because obviously they're in for a striker that we look like we've got. And a lot of the Plymouth fans there were saying that they think it affects them. And they're even talking about that there's been suggestions they could build a training ground 70, 80 miles up the M5 to try and get players a bit nearer, but which I'm sure you'll giggle at because it's Plymouth. But it's a bit of it's a consideration, isn't it, when players come and sign? We've often thought that we're a little bit cut off up here, but we are quite close to Manchester and Liverpool. But Exeter is, down there is difficult. So do you think you've lost a lot of players, who would have wanted to come, but location just doesn't work?
Yeah, it's a tough one. Obviously, if you're a young player, it's a bit different. You haven't got to uproot the whole family and, move across the country. If you're looking for those, experienced pros that are in the peak of their career or, pushing on a little bit more, it's a lot harder to sometimes go in for them. Kids are in school in Manchester or something like that, it's quite hard to persuade them, actually come down here and you'll have to drive 5 hours every time you want to see your kids. It's a little bit of a tough sell sometimes. I think the club have come
We
on
laugh,
leaps and
but
bounds.
it is realistic, isn't it? No one is going to do that, and
Mm.
unless you are a ridiculously top club in the Premier League or pushing for promotion, and it is really a big project. So I completely understand your frustration.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think
you've got your derby against Plymouth, aren't you, to look forward to? That must be massive. That you've got to be up for that as well.
Yeah, we're glad to have that back. That's the highlight of my season,
Right.
to be honest. So yeah, as soon as they came down, we were very happy.
Good.
I'm sure. Sam, before we wrap up, do you have any questions for us?
Yeah. How genuinely, just how do you think you guys are going to do this season? Obviously, big club. You got some good players. I think Ennis is a brilliant striker, and one that could fight you to promotion. Where do you think you guys are going to finish, and where are you where are you aiming for?
I have said this for the last 3 seasons, and I think unless Bruce was in charge, me and Martin's attitude towards to be fair, the transfer has been excellent, but I don't think it'll be this good if we didn't have Bruce anyway. But I think our usual ramblings of them talking a lot versus doing a lot would probably come true. I think because we have Bruce, I always follow what the manager says, and if the club talk like they want promotion and Bruce is only here to win promotion, I don't think we will get promotion. I expect it, because you can't. Bruce, a man of his caliber, and Sadler, the owner of our football club, can't go on record to say promotion is the only option if we don't show it in the transfer market and on the pitch. So my expectations are to the minimum of top 6, but pushing for that top 2, because we're going to be spending, hopefully, fingers crossed, the deal gets finalised for Taylor, over £1 million on a striker. And we've built players like George Honeyman, Horsfall, Jordan Brown of Leyton Orient, etc. All these teams that won or going for promotion in our squad, and the bench is going to look a lot healthier when our injuries return. So there is no reason why we can't do it. So therefore they are my expectations. I don't know about you, Martin.
I think, to sum it up in a nutshell, for me, we've suffered from this. We got relegated from the Championship, and I think 2 years ago we were very bullish about it, thinking, look, we're going to do really well in this league, and we were great at home and struggled really badly away. Last season we threw the plan out the window after 2 games, but also the recruitment has never been right. But this summer, the club have, as Tom's alluded to, the club have talked about promotion and then backed it up by actually getting players that you would expect to get you promotion. Whereas before, I think we've bigged ourselves up because we care about the club so much. I think top 6, anything other than top 6 or less than top 6 is a catastrophic failure. And after that, you take your chances, because it's a tough league. Huddersfield are spending money, Luton are spending money. Yeah. There's a lot of good teams at this level. Not a Wrexham, not a Birmingham, but still teams that have got the same sort of financial clout that we're showing, if not more. But I think we are actually backing it up with action rather than just chatting about it. So yeah, top 6 and pushing on is a absolute bare minimum. And Bruce has said it himself, so he's set the standard now. So yeah.
Well, Luton spends, Huddersfield spends, Bolton spend, Stockport spend / expectations and how they play. There is 4 or 5 teams that want top 2, and therefore it's probably about 8-9 teams who want playoffs. So I still expect it. Wycombe will want to do it. They've spent really well. If they don't lose Kone, then if they do lose Kone, they'll probably replace him with someone else. And Leyton Orient want promotion. Wellens already said that. So there is about 6 or 7 teams deadly serious for promotion, and Huddersfield's literally spending millions, aren't they? On Alfie May, etc., and Joe Lowe and a few others. So it's going to be exciting, but the more you stay in League One over the next 3 years, it's going to be tremendously difficult, because there's going to be some big money floating about, especially those teams coming down from the Championship.
Yeah, I agree. To be fair, it's nicer to see, the last few years in League One, we've had Ipswich, who were a massive club, Birmingham, Wrexham, we've seen
Sunderland.
Yeah, we've seen clubs that are just basically the top 2 are a given from the start of the season. So it's nice this season. I expect Huddersfield to win the league, to be honest. But, it's nice seeing so many clubs that could actually go and get these automatic places, which I think we've missed for the last few seasons.
Yeah.
Gents, I'm going to wrap it up there. I want to give my thanks to you, Sam, for one, waiting so patiently, and two, giving us a fantastic insight to our trip to Exeter on Saturday and our opponents, of course.
Yeah, no worries, guys. Thank you for having me on.
Martin, as always, it's been a long time, buddy, but thanks for coming on.
Cheers, mate. No, all the best to you after Saturday. I hope you have a great season.
Yeah, you too.
Cheers.
From all of us at the It's Not Orange podcast, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. We're in its infancy. It will help us grow. And when we share videos, obviously, get more subscribers. But for now, from the It's Not Orange podcast, we'll see you again soon.